Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon and welcome back. You are tuned into Salam Media. This is, of course, the Iftar Drive, the weekend edition hosted by myself, Zahid Jadwat, every Saturday and Sunday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. around that time. All right, so it's time for our segment where we do a personality profile of different individuals from across South Africa, young people in particular, who have found their way into their career and they are doing some really great stuff. So I'm pleased to introduce to you this afternoon. We are actually going to be joined by Ntsoko. He's a trade and public policy analyst. He should be in the studio right now. And if I could just ask that they introduce him. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to the show, Nthatho.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks for this opportunity, Zahid. How are you?
It is, I am well, Alhamdulillah. It is great to speak to you, finally speak to you. I think we've been planning this for about a month or so, right? Um, so, how has your
Alhamdulillah.
fast been thus far, first off?
Yeah, the first few fasts are quite challenging, it's quite grappling to know the adjustments of your meal intake and yeah, just but I've been privileged to work from home, so Alhamdulillah, everything's okay.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah. So we've got quite a bit to unpack in the course of the show, and there's quite a bit to discuss, but I think we'll just take it as it comes. We're not going to try to be too formal. We'll just take it easy. It is Sunday after all. So there's quite a bit we want to talk about, but like I said, we'll just take it as it comes. And amongst the stuff we wanted to speak about was bridging the gap between the different races and stuff that happened as a result of apartheid and various other stuff, the constitution as well, I believe you wanted to discuss as well, and equality as well, a really interesting and important issue in South Africa at the moment. But we'll see how that goes. And just a few questions in the beginning now. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to ask a few icebreaker questions, just to get us to
Yes.
ease us into it. I hope you are comfortable with that. And then, of course, we get into the serious stuff.
I am.
All right. Are you ready for this?
Bismillah, Bismillah, Zahid.
Okay. So let's get right into it. Your full name, I know Nthatho Ntsoko, but of course, you might have a full name, a longer name.
Yes. Yeah, it's Nthatho Gift Ntsoko. That's my biological name. That's the one that I was gifted by my mom. And I have also a revert name, which is Muhammad.
Well, that's great. Alhamdulillah. Your favorite food?
My favorite food, I actually like eating pizza. Usually on Fridays. It's my cheat meal. So yes.
I mean, it was actually a bit, I don't know if it was quite appropriate to actually ask you about your favorite food while we're fasting. But anyway, your favorite hobby at the moment?
Just to consider that. Well, my favorite hobby, what I do, I read books, but more I'm more of a gym freak, if you can call me. So I tend to take out like my stress, and mellow around in the gym, and that's really basically my hobby. Yeah.
So you mentioned also you like to read books. So what's the favorite book, the best book you've ever read?
The best book that I've ever read actually was Prophet Muhammad by Tariq Ramadan. That was a phenomenal book that I read like 3 years or 4 years ago. Alhamdulillah, it documented the seerah of the Prophet. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Indeed. Your favorite city or town or village at the moment? I mean, for myself personally, it's Johannesburg. And for you? All right, we seem to be having a bit of technical difficulty there, connecting with Nthatho Ntsoko. So it's been quite interesting speaking to him for the past few minutes and, just introducing him to the listeners and getting to know him. So as he said, his favorite food is pizza. He loves to go to the gym and also he loves to read books. His birth name is Nthatho Gift. Ntsoko, but of course he is a revert, so he has adopted the name of Muhammad. So that's also interesting, and I would like to get to know him. And as we go on with the show, um, we will get to know him better. I see he's just joined us back. I'm so sorry for the dub, and I hope you can hear me clearly now. Ntato,
Zahid?
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. All right, so we were going through the first few icebreaker questions, and I think time is against us, so there's quite a few more questions which I'd like to ask. But I
Yes.
think, let's park that off there for now, since we do have just about 23 minutes remaining till the end of the show, the segment at least. So if we could just go into the deeper questions right now. So, firstly, maybe tell us about where you were born, where you grew up, and what your family life was like.
So yes, I grew up in the east of Joburg, a small town called Benoni. And within that particular town, I grew up in a township called Wattville. So that's where I grew up, Zahid. And my family structure is that I grew up under the guise of my great grandmother and my great grandfather, and they took care of me. So my mom is a single parent, and we are. I have two other siblings, and they both older than me. So that's basically my family orientation. And yeah, it's been. I went to different schools. I started at Benoni Junior School, and then I went on to Rhinefield, and I actually matriculated at Benoni High. And the subsequent years also entail that I'd go to the University of Johannesburg, and through the rahmah of Allah, I managed to graduate. And yes, life led me to a city, the capital city being Pretoria.
Indeed, it is great to hear that. But let's talk about the dynamics of your upbringing. So, how did these dynamics actually influence you and shape you to become the person that you are today?
Being the youngest born, I my older siblings didn't have the privileges that I have, of going to university and matriculating and so forth. So I always had to bridge the gap, and that fortified and made me a
Yeah, I think this connection right now is really weak, and we are unable to connect with Nthatho. But I think if we could, maybe we could just try and get him telephonically. So I'm gonna ask the studio controllers if they could get him on telephonically, and so yeah, I think we should take an ad break right now, and while we try to reconnect with Ntato, of course he has quite an interesting story to share with everyone. He's got quite a long, interesting story, which I'm sure has many lessons for everyone to learn. Of course, he's a revert, so he's going to share that story with us as well, and it's quite inspirational. But right now, let's take an ad break, and when we get back, we'll see if we can get a better connection with Ntato. Please do stay tuned.
Media, your spiritual companion this Ramadan.
Southern Africa Dawah Network is a non-profit organization striving to uplift the disadvantaged and empowering through education and dawah. Donate to the SADN centers, the MA Motala Islamic Center, as well as our Islamic centers in Amoti, Imtalumi, Botshabelo and Castile. Donate your zakat and millah today. Contact Farooq Sheikh 076-321-0650, Yusuf Mohammadi 072-259-3457, or the SADN head office 031 304 8000. Our account, Standard Bank, account number 050 856 294 for your zakat, or 050 879 790 for your lillah. Dawah through education, education through dawah, the Southern Africa Dawah Network.
Motala Perfumes, one of the biggest perfume manufacturing houses in Africa, with a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility specializing in designing, creating, developing and producing new scents and matching designer fragrances for all our stores, as well as private labeling for individuals and companies across Africa. Visit your nearest Motala Perfumes store or visit our website at www.motalaperfumes.com for more information on creating your own brand.
Africa. Provide dignity, safety and nourishment to millions of needy families in 14 countries across the globe this Ramadan by sponsoring towards the Africa Muslims Agency's More Than a Meal campaign. Sponsor a food hamper at 1,100 rands or an Iftaar Suhoor meal box at 100 rands. Call Africa Muslims Agency on 011 834 8685 or donate at africamuslimsagency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency, inspiring the spirit of giving. My Lord, show me right from wrong.
Huda SA is an organization that focuses primarily on assisting communities within the eThekwini region by collaborating with existing Islamic centers, mosques and madrasas. Your contribution goes towards the uplifting of orphans and vulnerable children, including vulnerable families, by assisting with education, welfare, nutrition and maintenance of madrasas, mosques and Islamic community centers. Make the difference. Donate to our noble causes. More information is available at huda-int.org or WhatsApp or call us on 031 271 3049.
My Lord, show me right from wrong. Give me light, make me strong. I know the road is long.
Looking to get your kick? Kiki's have now reopened on 235 Matthews Maiwa Road in Durban. Head on over for the Taste with Kick. We offer something scrumptious for everyone in the family. Wraps, chicken tikka, burgers, tender grills, mocktails, milkshakes and so much more. Corporate and events catering available. Visit our social media pages for more info or call 031 209 0119. Kiki's, the Taste with Kick.
Salam Media, your spiritual companion this Ramadan.
And welcome back. We do apologize for the technical difficulties which we had been experiencing a bit earlier on, but we have been able to secure a better line, hopefully a better line with Nthatho to share his story. And let me just reintroduce him and welcome him back to the show. Assalamu alaikum, Nthatho. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Sorry, Zahid, network issues actually interjected our conversation.
Yeah, no problem. I think that's what happens and is to be expected when we are, trying to adapt to this new normal of everything being online. I think it would have been better if we could be on studio, but obviously, this is how we are doing things now. So before we lost you, you were discussing how the dynamics of your upbringing, how that influenced your life, and unfortunately we lost you there. So if you could just continue from there.
Yes. So yeah, that's basically my upbringing. My grandparents were the ones who were the custodians of me. I have a single parent, which is my mom, and I have two other siblings who are older than me. So these are the things which have fortified me and made me who I am today. Living under an impoverished background, we didn't have much. So these are the things that made me realize who I am, and they pushed me further to where I am right now.
Mm-hmm. And of course, at what point, I mean, it would be interesting to know, at what point did you eventually, discover Islam and find your way into the fold of Islam, if you don't mind sharing that with us?
Yes, no, I don't mind sharing that with you, certainly, Zahid. Zahid, my grandmother was born
Hmm.
Muslim, and so what happened is that when she married my grandfather, she became Christian. So, Qadar Allah, things, when my great grandfather from my grandmother's side passed away, my mother decided to take the Shahada. And whilst taking the
Hmm.
Shahada, I was still young, but I could read books and stuff. So I was basically in grade seven, and there were books around about Islam because she used to get these books. And so there was one book that I read, which was Crucifixion or Crucifixion by Ahmed Didat, who made a comparative analysis and a deep dive of, crucifixion, whether it was a reality or not. And all these books and comparative religion in terms of Islam, Judaism, then made me realize that there's similarities between the Abrahamic religions. And 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 of the reading, then then decided that wow, this is a nuanced perspective, and I decided to take the Shahada. This was like
Hmm.
only 3 years after my mom became Muslim, so it took some time. I was a bit, against it. I looked at it as Indian religion, but over time I then contextualized it and I realized that actually this is the truth and this is the haq, and there was no going back since then. So it's been over 10 years that I have been a Muslim.
Alhamdulillah. I think that's really great, and I'm glad you've chosen to share that with us. But I'm going to touch now, I'm going to delve into something which I think many people, especially within the Muslim Indian community, are going to be uncomfortable hearing. And I think it's a conversation that we don't really have quite often. So I think I'm not speaking on behalf of the entire Indian Muslim community, but I think from amongst reverts and Muslims who have just entered the fold of Islam, especially from within the Black African community. When they enter Islam, I think there is this sense, this sort of perception, um, like that a massive number of people amongst the Indian community aren't exactly that welcoming, because of cultural differences and background and those sort of issues. Would you agree with this? Do you think this perception is correct? Coming from yourself, your personal experience.
Well, our personal experiences differ from a person to person, but what I can say is that my brother lost out to Islam because of racism, and
Mm.
he denounced Islam, and he became a kuffar immediately after experiencing racism, in the masjid. So these are things that I think every person differs, in terms of opinion. What I can say about my lived experience is that I've come into, yes, an array of racism specific nuances that have been there and presented to me. But I know that Islam doesn't preach that. So it's about the divide between what is Islam and what is a Muslim. A Muslim can fault, a Muslim can fault, a Muslim can sin, but Islam doesn't preach racism. So I hold Islam to a high esteem, and I know that the principles of Islam are the ones that protect us from these practices of Jahiliyyah. So that's
Mm.
what I can say to you. I would
Mm.
rather be in a rather a holistic and not specific about my issue that I've
Mm.
encountered myself.
Mm. And I mean, it's really unfortunate that that's the experience that people who come into Islam have often have to face. It's really unfortunate, and as you mentioned, your brother, in fact, he actually left Islam afterwards after experiencing some level of racism. Um, but if we could just for a moment, unpack this a little bit further. So you say you've been a Muslim for over 10 years, and I think the response many people would give you to this when you say that there is quite, I mean, people wouldn't like to speak about it. There is racism within the Indian community. There's undoubtedly a certain level of racism in the Indian community. And I think the instant response, the immediate response to that would be that, this is prevalent amongst the elder generation, and this is because they grew up in, a community during the apartheid years, where it was just them Indians amongst themselves, and they didn't really interact with people of other races. But of course, you have been a Muslim for more than 10 years, and apartheid is long gone. Would you say that over the time that you've been a Muslim, over these 10 years, the attitudes have changed and, have become less racist? Or has the same situation, perpetuated itself over time?
Yeah, Zahid, these are questions which are very subjective in nature, and I can say to you that the majority of Muslim spaces that I've encountered, majority are not of racist mentality. However, because of the socialization process that has occurred within, the colonization, be it apartheid, these then inform a person to then have this consistency of behavioral attitudes. So I can say that things do get better. Things can exacerbate. You move from one mosque, the attitude is different. You go to a less developed community. You go to a developed community. The how they treat you as a black Muslim differs, because they might think that you are you're someone who's in need, and they want to give you food parcels. They want to give you kosas when breaking fast. Whereas, no, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted me certain liberties and has awarded me certain privileges also. I can also afford certain things that I can fend for myself. So these are the things that happen, because there's a socialization process that has happened. And there's a group think that, yes, this is the framing and this is the certain type of people who are there. Whereas that's not the reality. And we ought to change and not have the mentality of Jahiliyyah.
Yes, indeed. And I think this is a conversation which really has to be had, as cringy as it may feel, as awkward as it may be. But I think it's a conversation that must be had, because, it's really unacceptable that you have been, these are the experiences, the real experiences which you have loved. And I'm glad you have been able to share it with us. But let's just move on a bit. Your thoughts on the current political situation in South Africa?
My current thoughts basically are also of, people always say that, why are you bringing apartheid? Why are you bringing colonialism? But these are things which are fundamental to the economic landscape that we're facing, even at the political level. Just the other day, right now, you'd find that Natasha Mazzoni commented and said that education doesn't mean nothing. And these are things that are sensitive. It speaks about the gatekeeping that white people have. That we've got a divided economy that is mostly concentrated on people who are white. And I don't think that the ANC has done much to transform the political and economic landscape of South Africa, because people still are marginalized, and when you look at the economy post-COVID, these vulnerabilities have exacerbated, and it's up to the ANC government to change and have this renewal interest that they speak about in terms of having an inclusive economy, having a land redistribution, for example, so that we can have an equitable society. So I'm a person who believes much in renaissance and bridging the gap between the poor and the privileged. But this capitalist system that we are living in, we ought to rethink about it and create an inclusive economy that serves the majority of the population.
Mhm. And it's a pity that
Constitution, like
yeah.
example, Zahid, just to interject there, is that the Constitution in itself speaks about equal opportunities. It speaks about equity and distribution of wealth. However, the Constitution doesn't provide enough access to people, so we're not sharing enough, in the distribution of wealth in the country.
Mhm. And it's interesting you mentioned the inequalities that have been perpetuated in South Africa, in the new South Africa, the democratic South Africa. Um, and of course, then I would like to hear your thoughts. I mean, we've hardly got any time left, but if we could just quickly get your thoughts on the current government, the way that they've dealt with these issues. I mean, you said that. They have been speaking about it quite a bit, but where do you think they fall short when it comes to actual implementation of these policies, which are which they say would help the country and improve the situation and address these inequalities which we speak about?
Um, I don't want to seem apologetic, but I believe that post-COVID scenario, it's for the government to have executors than people who speak of ideas. So when I speak about this, is that within this post-COVID scenario, or let's say the COVID scenario that we're currently facing, it's for the governing party to forge a new economy, and which meets the global reality that is there. So you find that the ANC is prioritizing issues such as infrastructure, and obviously these issues such as infrastructure will have capital investments. The capital investments will have spillover effects where people actually get employed. However, the reality on the ground is that we're looking at this in 5 to 6 years, whereas people need jobs right now. The youth, there's growing unemployment, and there's not much that the ANC government is doing. So I'm a pro ANC person, but yet again, I believe, example, in expropriation without compensation in terms of the land, which is an EFF policy. And so I happen to be, when I look at the politics realm, you can take from each political party, there are pressing issues which need to be implemented so that they can become redressed. But like I say, Zahid, we need executors. We don't need people who are going to be politicizing and, playing a long game so that they can be in power, but people who are implementing and monitoring and evaluating the situation on the ground so that the majority of the people, the populace, can reap the said rewards of political emancipation and economic realities that we ought to face in South Africa.
Mhm.
I hope.
So would you say that I think it comes down to politicians actually having a real feel of what it is on the situation on the ground, the situation on the ground, and actually being in touch with the electorate?
Yes, yes. And I don't think that the people in power currently are actually in touch with the people on the ground. Especially when we look at like example, the unemployment situation is that they are not creating a sustainable methodology. They would just create contract jobs like of 12 months, and there's just so much, Zahid. People are facing so much poverty in South Africa. So that disconnect is fundamental to what we're facing right now, where they're getting high, they get high salaries, but people aren't getting, they're barely living off, barely surviving. Some aren't even eating. Some families are. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. If you could just finalize your thoughts. please.
Yes. So yes, I'm just saying that the electorate. There's this notion about the ANC being treated like religion, you know, and I think that's the bone of contention where people need to realize that there should be a change. And once the ANC gets, you know, challenged and disempowered, and you know, let's say we run into a coalition government. I know coalition governments really don't run well, but we ought to have an opposition party also that understands the pressing plight of the marginalized majority.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and it's a conversation which we could actually continue for quite some time. But we've been together for the last 30 minutes discussing these topics, and I think it's really interesting. And I would, at some point, I hope to reconnect with you at some point to delve into these discussions further. But that's where we're going to have to leave it for now. It is just gone 1 minute past 5 p.m. Central African time. But thank you so much for your time, Jazakallah. You have a great day further.
Shukran, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I hope that we can continue the conversation when you are available again. Thanks for the opportunity, Zahid. Shukran.
Yes, indeed. It is a pleasure. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It was a pleasure to host Ntsoko on the line, joining us from, I think he was coming out to us live from Pretoria, discussing firstly his life, and then also to a great extent we discussed his lived experience being a revert African Muslim, and speaking about integration into the broader Muslim community, especially one in South Africa which is dominated by largely by the Indian community. And then also he discussed some of the issues that he faces, the racial issue, something which I find really unacceptable, and something that is still perpetuated. But I think hopefully, as time passes, this is, as Nthatho spoke about, I think it seems to be wearing off. But it's still as much as little as it may seem to be at the moment. I think it's still a serious issue, and it really needs to be addressed. And then we also spoke about the political situation in South Africa, and he said that the government and politicians really need to reconnect with the electorate. And I think it's gonna also we're gonna see how this unfolds in time to come, especially since the 2021 local government elections are not too far away. They are actually right on our doorstep. Thank you for tuning in. And if you've been following this on Facebook, it has been broadcast live on Facebook as well, also on our YouTube and on the airwaves of Salam Media. And thank you for tuning in. I see we've just gotten a comment here from Ahtaram Shin, who is also listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. We do appreciate your company. And that's actually not where we're going to leave it for the show. That's just where we're going to park it for the segment. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to be connecting with somebody from Cape Town, in fact, who was on the ground to cover the situation in near Table Mountain, a fire that has broken out there, and it seems that there's been quite a great difficulty containing the fire and, of course, putting it out eventually. So we're going to discuss that when we get back. Please do stay tuned.